G'day and welcome back to AC's Make and Repair. Today on the channel I'm going to make a raised garden bed out of some old building materials, some old roofing iron and some old flashing that I had lying around. We made it according to what we had lying around. Most of you will be able to access this material if you haven't got it lying around at home from a scrap yard or maybe a recycling yard. We made it because my daughter wanted another one made for her veggie garden. Come along with me today. I'll show you how I did it. It's quite a simple project. You don't have to make it elaborate at all. It can be just down to earth practical. First I accessed some old corrugated roofing material in this U-shaped channel. I'm going to measure the width of the channel and then cut it down so it's an angle line, not a U-shaped channel anymore. I marked either end. Then I flicked the chalk line through so I could follow it. I'm going to cut it with a jigsaw, this one. After I'd cut the angle, I set it aside and then concentrated on cutting the corrugated roofing material down to height. I measured the desired height that I needed, used the other sheet beside it to line up the factory edge. It's a nice straight edge to use. Then I marked the edge with a pen all the way along. I then proceeded, after I did this, to block it up a bit so I could cut it down with a jigsaw with a metal blade. I laid the other sheet down and laid the sheet that I'd already cut on top, ensuring to cut exactly the same profile top and bottom on the new sheet that I'd put down. I marked it with the pen and then proceeded to cut it out with a pair of electric shears instead of the jigsaw this time. This proved to be very successful and faster. I now went on to cutting the side lengths. I got 2 out of one piece and 2 out of another. The dimensions that I use were 850 long by 350 millimeters high. You could use any dimension you wanted really. However, the longer you go, the more chance there is of the dirt bellying the middles out in the sheeting. So you may have to put some cross support in to stop it from bellying out. Some people use threaded rod even, or some sort of galvanised wire across. You do need something though if you go long in length and even greater in height. I went on to check the ends for square and trimmed where necessary, squared my marks across, then cut with aviation snips across. You could use a jigsaw to cut across or normal tin snips to cut across too. Next, I measured, squared, and cut to length the angle line corner brackets, cutting from either side with tin snips. I removed the burrs using a file. The burrs were left from the jigsaw when I cut the angle in the first place. Using a combination square, I marked 3 marks for a guide so all the screws would line up on every corner, looking neat and uniform. I only marked the ridges. I didn't screw the hollows, only in 3 spots. Using 12 gauge by 20mm metal tech screws, I screwed the angle line corners on either end of 2 sides, ensuring to hold them firmly and eventually squaring them neat. I stood the ends with the angle brackets up, then butted the sides in nice and tight and neatly. I clamped them with vice grips and screwed the top screw on each corner. I then proceeded to turn the whole lot upside down and screwed the bottom screws in, ensuring the corners were nice and square, and then fitted the middle screw as well. You could stop at this point, once all the screws were done, and use it as a garden even now. I then went on to mark out and cut and bend up some corner brackets to cover the top of the angle corners. I used the offcut from the flashing when I cut the angle. I used the first one that I marked and cut as a template to mark out the other 3 before folding it. Once I'd folded them all, I simply fitted them to the corner using 1/8 pop rivets. The next and last stage, I cut a length of poly, either rural or irrigation, 3/4 poly. The length was to suit the distance between the two corner brackets on either side. Then I cut a slot down the centre of one side of the poly using a utility knife. Finally, after cutting all the lengths of poly, I opened them up and slipped them over the top sharp edge on either side between the corner brackets. I fitted one to every side, all four sides. And finally, the finished product. I thought it came up pretty good myself. It took about an hour all up by the time I gathered all the materials together. I've gone to a bit more trouble to put the covering on the top of the sharp tin and on the corners. You could probably put a bigger piece of poly on the top that would cover the corners as well and notch it out to suit the corners to save all that problem of making the corners up. Anyhow, thanks for joining us. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.